I woke up with no hair. Let me say that again so you understand exactly what I'm telling you. I woke up with no hair. 12 years of locks. 12 years of growth, of care, of love, of my identity wrapped up in every single strand. Gone. All of it. Gone. The morning of my PhD defense, the most important day of my entire life, the day I was supposed to become Dr. Zora Mitchell. I looked in the mirror, and I did not recognize the woman staring back at me. My scalp was raw, patches of uneven stubble everywhere, little cuts where the clippers had been careless, blood dried on my skin. And my husband was standing in the doorway, smiling. His mother was right behind him, holding the clippers. They did this to me. The man who stood before God and promised to love and protect me. The woman who called me daughter. They waited until I was asleep. They drugged me, and they took my crown. They thought they broke me. They thought I would crumble. They thought that without my hair, without my locks, without my crown, I would lose everything I had worked 7 years to achieve. Baby, let me tell you something. They thought wrong. They thought so wrong. Let me tell you how I walked into that defense room 4 hours later with my bald head held high. Let me tell you how I looked those professors in the eye and defended my dissertation like my ancestors were standing right behind me. Let me tell you how I became Dr. Zora Mitchell anyway. And then let me tell you how I came home and took everything from the people who tried to take everything from me. If you have ever had someone try to dim your light right when you were about to shine, if you have ever had the people closest to you try to sabotage your success, if you have ever been underestimated, overlooked, attacked, or betrayed by the very ones who should have been lifting you up, this story is for you. Before I take you back to the beginning, I need you to do something for me. If you believe that what God has for you cannot be stopped by anyone, not your husband, not your mother-in-law, not anyone who wants to see you fail, I need you to hit that subscribe button right now, like this video, so more women can hear this story, because trust me, somebody out there needs to hear this today. And I want you to comment below. Tell me where you are watching from. Tell me if you have ever had someone try to sabotage your success. Tell me if you have ever had to keep going when everything and everyone was telling you to quit. I want to know I am not alone, and I want you to know that you are not alone either. Now let me take you back to the beginning. Let me tell you how a little girl from the south side of Chicago almost lost everything she worked for, and how she got it all back and then some. 3 days before my defense, I was sitting in the university library making my final edits. 7 years of work spread out in front of me. 7 years of my life in one document. You have to understand what this PhD meant to me, what it meant to my family, what it meant to every woman who came before me. I was the first person in my family to go to college. Not just in my immediate family, in my entire family, cousins, aunts, uncles going back generations. I was the first. My mama raised me by herself on the south side of Chicago. She cleaned houses. She cleaned hotel rooms. She cleaned office buildings. She cleaned whatever needed cleaning wherever someone would pay her to do it. She never complained, not once. But I remember coming home from school one day when I was about 10 years old. The apartment was quiet. Too quiet. I found my mama sitting at the kitchen table with her head in her hands. Her fingers were cracked and bleeding from the chemicals she used every day. She did not know I was watching. She thought she was alone, and she was crying. Not loud crying, the kind of crying you do when you have cried so much you do not have any loud cries left. Just silent tears running down her face while she stared at her broken hands. I stood there in that doorway, and I made a promise to myself. I said, Mama, one day, you will not have to clean nobody else's house. One day, I am going to make something of myself, and I am going to take care of you. That PhD was not just a degree. That PhD was the fulfillment of a promise I made when I was 10 years old. It was for my mama and her cracked hands. It was for my grandmother, who could barely read because she had to drop out of school to work in the fields. It was for my great-grandmother, who was born into sharecropping and never had a chance at anything. It was for every black woman in my bloodline who dreamed of something more but never got the opportunity. I carried all of them with me through 7 years of this program. 7 years of being the only black woman in most of my classes. 7 years of professors looking at me like I did not belong. 7 years of having to work twice as hard to get half the recognition. 7 years of sleepless nights, 7 years of ramen noodles and peanut butter sandwiches because my stipend did not stretch far enough, 7 years of missing holidays and birthdays and funerals because I had deadlines, 7 years of watching friends get married and have babies while I was buried in books. I sacrificed everything, everything, and I was 3 days away from it all paying off. My dissertation was approved. My committee was ready. My defense was scheduled for Monday at 9 in the morning. I even had a job offer waiting for me at Howard University. Howard, the Mecca. Pending my successful defense, I was going to be a professor at one of the most prestigious historically black universities in the country. All I had to do was get through the next 72 hours. I came home that Friday afternoon feeling like I was walking on air. I had my final edits done. My advisor, Dr. Washington, had signed off on everything. All my years of struggle were about to be validated. I walked into my apartment expecting maybe a little celebration. Maybe my husband would have picked up some flowers or ordered my favorite food, something to acknowledge that his wife was about to become a doctor. Derek was on the couch playing video games. The living room was a mess. Dishes in the sink, laundry piled up. He had been home all day doing nothing while I was at the library working. I tried not to let it bother me. I said, "Hey babe, I just finished my final edits. Dr. Washington approved everything. Defense is Monday at 9. He did not even look up from his game. Just said, "That is good. That is good." That is all he had to say. 7 years of my life and all I got was "that is good." I asked him if maybe we could celebrate, if maybe we could do something special since this was the biggest moment of my life. He finally paused the game and looked at me, and the look on his face was not pride, it was not excitement, it was annoyance. He said, "Celebrate what? You spending more money we do not have on more school." I reminded him that it was a scholarship. I did not pay tuition. My stipend from teaching covered most of our expenses. He said, "But you do not make real money either. When are you going to be done playing student and get a real job?" Playing student, that is what he called it. 7 years of doctoral work, 3 published articles, a dissertation that was going to contribute to the field of psychology, and he called it playing student. I should have seen it then. I should have recognized the resentment in his voice, the jealousy in his eyes. But I loved him. I had loved him for 6 years, and I made excuses for him the way women do when they do not want to see the truth. I told myself he was just stressed. I told myself he would be proud of me once it was all over. I told myself things would get better after the defense. I told myself a lot of lies that week. Saturday morning, I woke up to the sound of knocking on our front door. It was 8 in the morning, and I had not had my coffee yet. Derek was still asleep because Derek did not believe in getting up before noon on weekends. I opened the door, and there stood my mother-in-law, Patricia, with a suitcase and a smile that did not reach her eyes. She said I came to help my baby girl get ready for her big day. She pushed past me into the apartment before I could even respond. Now let me tell you about Patricia Mitchell. This woman had been a thorn in my side from the moment I started dating her son. Nothing I did was ever good enough. My cooking was too seasoned or not seasoned enough. My house was too messy or too clean. I worked too much or I did not work hard enough. She had never gone to college herself, raised 3 kids as a single mother after her husband left, and somewhere along the way, she had decided that educated women were the enemy, especially educated women who married her precious baby boy. She walked into my apartment that Saturday morning and immediately started rearranging things. She picked up my defense notes and said, "Let me organize these for you, baby." Before I could stop her, she had mixed up all my carefully arranged pages. She went into my bedroom and came out holding my defense outfit, the suit I had bought specifically for this day. She said, "I was just hanging this up for you, but I think I may have gotten something on it." There was a stain on the collar that was not there before. She looked at my hair, my beautiful locks that I had been growing for 12 years. She said, "All those locks must be so heavy on your brain. How do you think with all that weight on your head?" I tried to stay calm. I tried to remind myself that this was my husband's mother and I needed to keep the peace. I tried to tell myself that she was just trying to help in her own misguided way, but she was not trying to help. She was trying to sabotage. I just could not see it yet. Dinner that night was a nightmare. Patricia had taken over my kitchen and made a meal that was somehow both burned and undercooked. We sat at the table and she started in on me. She said, You know, Zora, when I was your age, I was raising 3 children, not sitting in classrooms playing school. I said, times are different now, Mother Patricia. She said, are they? A woman's place is still with her family. Look at my son. He needs you, and you are always at that school. Derek nodded along with everything his mother said. He said, she is right, Zoe. Once this defense is over, things need to change. I asked what he meant by change. He said I would be Dr. Whatever, and I would have proved my point. Now it was time to focus on us, on family, maybe start having kids. I told them about the job offer from Howard. I told them we would need to move to Washington, D.C. The table went silent. Derek and Patricia looked at each other. Something passed between them, some unspoken communication that I was not a part of. Derek said we would talk about that later. They did not want to talk about it. They wanted to stop it. They wanted to stop me. I just did not realize how far they were willing to go. Sunday morning, things got worse. I woke up and could not find my laptop. I had left it on my desk the night before, and now it was gone. I searched everywhere, under the bed, in the closets, in the kitchen. Finally, I found it in the bathroom cabinet behind the towels. The battery was dead because someone had left it on all night. I asked Derek if he had moved it. He said no. I asked Patricia. She said, maybe you moved it yourself, baby, and forgot. You have been so stressed lately. Maybe you are not thinking clearly. I knew I had not moved it, but I did not have time to argue. I had to charge my laptop and finish preparing for my defense. That afternoon, my best friend Destiny called to wish me luck. She asked how I was doing, and I started to cry. I did not even know why I was crying. Everything just felt wrong. The energy in my apartment was off. My husband and his mother were watching me like they were waiting for something. Destiny asked if I was okay. I said I was fine. Just stressed. Just tired. She said, Zora, you know you can tell me anything, right? I said, I know, girl. I am just ready for Monday to be over. If only I had told her what was really happening. If only I had asked for help before it was too late. That night, Patricia made dinner again. She insisted. She said I needed to rest and she would take care of everything. She made me a cup of tea. Chamomile, she said, to help me sleep. I did not think anything of it. Why would I? This was my mother-in-law. This was family. I drank the tea. It tasted a little bitter, but I figured that was just the chamomile. An hour later, I could barely keep my eyes open. I told Derek I was going to bed early. I needed to be rested for my defense. He said that was a good idea. He kissed me on the forehead. He said he would come to bed soon. I went into our bedroom. I laid out my defense outfit, the backup outfit since Patricia had stained the first one. I reviewed my notes one more time. I did my nighttime routine. I stood in front of the mirror and oiled my locks the way I had done every night for 12 years. I ran my fingers through them. I felt their weight and their beauty. I thanked God for giving me this crown. I had no idea it would be the last time. I took a sleeping pill because I was anxious and needed to rest. Between that and whatever was in that tea Patricia gave me, I was out cold within minutes. I slept so deeply I did not hear them come in. I found out later what happened while I was sleeping, what they were planning while I was dreaming about becoming Dr. Mitchell. Derek and Patricia sat at my kitchen table in my apartment that I had been paying for since before I even met him, and they plotted my destruction. Patricia told him I was already gone. She said once I got that PhD, I would leave him. She said educated women always leave. She said I already thought I was better than him, and the degree would just make it worse. Derek asked what they should do. Patricia said they needed to humble me. They needed to remind me of my place. They needed to take away my pride, so I would need them again. And then she told him about my hair. She said, you know how these women are about their hair? All that pride, all that ego, it is all wrapped up in those locks. Take away the hair and you take away the power. Derek hesitated. Even he knew this was crossing a line. He asked if they should really do something like that. Patricia pushed. She told him he was going to lose his wife. She told him that come Monday morning I would be Dr. Mitchell, and what would he be? A man whose wife was more educated than him. A man whose wife made more money than him. A man whose wife did not need him anymore. She knew exactly which buttons to push. She knew her son's insecurities. She knew his fragile ego. and she used all of it against me. Finally, Derek agreed. He asked what they needed to do. Patricia reached into her bag and pulled out a pair of clippers. She had bought them that morning. She had been planning this for days, maybe weeks. She came to my apartment that weekend with one purpose: to destroy me. She told Derek they would wait until I was deeply asleep. The tea she gave me would make sure of that. Then they would go into the bedroom and cut it all off, every single lock, down to the scalp. She said when I woke up in the morning, I would be too embarrassed to go to my defense. I would have to postpone. And once I postponed, I would probably never go back. I would be too broken, too humiliated, too defeated. Then I would need them. Then I would be dependent. Then I would stay. That was their plan. That was what my husband and his mother decided I deserved. After 6 years of loving him, after 4 years of marriage, after 7 years of working toward this dream, they decided I deserved to be violated in my sleep. They set their alarm for 2 in the morning. They waited until the house was completely quiet, until they were sure I was unconscious. Then they came for my crown. I do not remember any of it. I was so deeply asleep I did not feel a thing. I did not feel them come into my bedroom. I did not feel Patricia pull my locks to the side. I did not feel the clippers touch my scalp. I did not hear the buzzing. I did not feel the vibration. I did not know that 12 years of my life were falling to the floor around my head. I slept through my own violation. They were not careful. They were not gentle. They were in a hurry to finish before I woke up. The clippers nicked my scalp in several places, little cuts that bled onto my pillow. They did not even bother to clean it up. When they were done, they gathered up my locks and put them in a trash bag. 12 years of growth, 12 years of my identity, stuffed in a plastic bag and thrown in the garbage like it was nothing. Then they went to bed. They went to sleep like it was any other night, like they had not just committed an act of violence against someone they claimed to love. My alarm went off at 5 in the morning, 4 hours before my defense. I reached up to touch my hair the way I always did when I woke up. My fingers touched stubble. For a second, I did not understand. I thought I was still dreaming. I thought my hand had just missed my locks somehow. I reached again. Stubble. Nothing but stubble. I shot up out of bed and ran to the bathroom. I turned on the light. I looked in the mirror, and I screamed. The woman looking back at me was a stranger. Her head was nearly bald, patches of uneven stubble everywhere. Some spots cut down to the skin. Some spots still had an inch of hair where the clippers had not reached. Little dried streams of blood ran down her scalp and onto her neck. I screamed until my throat was raw. Derek appeared in the doorway. He was not running. He was not panicked. He was calm, too calm. He already knew what I was seeing because he was the one who did it. He said I needed to calm down. He said I had been having a mental breakdown. He said they had to do something. I could not even form words. I just stood there touching my head over and over, trying to find my locks, trying to wake up from this nightmare. Patricia appeared behind him. She was holding a glass of water like she was there to help, like she had not just destroyed me. She said, "We saved you, baby." She said all that stress, all that pressure was making me lose myself. The hair was just too much. Now I could focus on what was important. Now I could focus on family. I looked at the floor. I saw the strands of hair they had missed. I saw my crown scattered on the cold bathroom tile. I looked at my husband, the man I had loved for 6 years, the man I had married, the man I had built a life with. There was no guilt in his eyes, no remorse, just a quiet satisfaction, like he had finally won something. I looked at Patricia. She was smiling, actually smiling, like this was a happy occasion, like they had done me some kind of favor. I looked at the clock on the wall. It was 5:15 in the morning. My defense was at 9, 3 hours and 45 minutes until the most important moment of my life, and I was standing in my bathroom with no hair, with a scalp that was bleeding, with a husband and mother-in-law who had violated me in my sleep. They expected me to crumble. They expected me to cry and beg and fall apart. They expected me to call the university and postpone. They expected me to give up. Part of me wanted to. Part of me wanted to sink to the floor and never get up again. But then I heard my mama's voice in my head. I heard her saying, "Baby, I did not clean white folks' houses for you to quit now." I heard my grandmother. I heard my great-grandmother. I heard every woman in my bloodline who never got the chance I had. They did not get to stop me. Not Derek, not Patricia, not anyone. I looked at my husband and my mother-in-law standing in that doorway, waiting for me to break. And I said 2 words. Get out. Derek started to say something, started to explain, started to justify. I said it again. Get out. Something in my voice made them move. Something they had never heard before. A coldness, a finality. They backed out of the bathroom. I closed the door. I locked it. I sank to the floor, surrounded by the remains of my locks. I let myself cry for exactly 5 minutes. I let myself grieve what they had taken from me. Then I stood up. I looked in the mirror at this stranger with the wounded scalp, and I made a decision. They wanted me bald. Fine, I would be bald, but I would be bald on my own terms. I picked up Derek's razor. I turned on the water, and I finished what they started. I shaved my head completely clean, smooth, even. No more patches, no more evidence of their violence. If I was going to walk into that defense room without my crown, I was going to walk in like a queen anyway. I put cocoa butter on my scalp. I put on my grandmother's pearl earrings. I put on my biggest gold hoops. I did my makeup flawlessly. I put on my red lipstick, power red. I put on my backup defense outfit, a red suit. The color of power, the color of blood, the color of a woman who refused to be defeated. I looked in the mirror one more time. I did not look like myself, but I looked like someone who was about to go to war. 4 hours ago they tried to destroy me. Now I was about to show them exactly who they were dealing with. I stood in that bathroom for what felt like hours, but was probably only 20 minutes. I had to make a choice. I could fall apart. I could cancel my defense. I could let them win. Or I could show up anyway. I thought about every obstacle I had overcome to get to this point. I thought about being the only black girl in my honors classes in high school. I thought about working 2 jobs while getting my bachelor's degree. I thought about professors who told me I was not cut out for academia. I thought about every person who looked at me and saw someone who did not belong. I had survived all of that. I had pushed through all of that. I was not about to let 2 small, bitter people take everything I had worked for. I called my best friend Destiny. It was 6 in the morning, and I knew she would be awake because she was always awake. That woman ran on coffee and determination. She answered on the second ring. She said, "Hey girl, just calling to wish you good luck today." I said they cut my hair. She went quiet. Then she said, "What? Who?" I said, "Derek and Patricia, last night, while I was asleep." They shaved my head. I could hear her processing this information. I could hear the rage building in her voice. She said she was on her way. I told her no. I told her I needed her to do something else. I asked if she was heading to her office. She was a corporate attorney at one of the biggest firms in the city. She had access to resources I did not have. She had connections I did not have. I told her I needed her to look some things up for me. Assault charges, divorce procedures, everything she could find. She asked if I was sure. I said I was more sure than I had ever been about anything in my life. I said I was going to my defense. I was going to pass. And when I got out, I was going to destroy them. She said she would have everything ready by the time I was done. Then I called my mama. It was early, and I knew I would wake her up, but I needed to hear her voice. I needed her to tell me I could do this. She answered, sounding groggy. She asked what was wrong. She knew something was wrong because I never called this early. I told her what happened. I kept my voice steady. I did not cry. I had already done my crying. Now I was in warrior mode. My mama went silent. For a long moment she did not say anything. Then I heard a sound I had never heard before. My mama growling. Actually growling, like something primal had been awakened inside her. She said, "Baby, you listen to me. You go to that defense. You hold your head up high. You show them who you are. And then you call me. Because I am getting on the first bus to wherever you are, and me and the Lord are going to have a conversation with that boy and his mama." I said, "I love you, Mama." She said she loved me more. She said she was proud of me. She said my grandmother was looking down from heaven right now, and she was proud too. I hung up the phone, and looked at myself in the mirror one more time. My head was smooth and bald, my scalp was still tender from the cuts, but my eyes were clear, my jaw was set, my spine was straight. They had taken my hair, but they had not taken my mind, they had not taken my education, they had not taken my 7 years of work. I picked up my bag, I picked up my dissertation, I picked up every ounce of strength I had left, and I walked out of that bathroom ready to become Dr. Zora Mitchell. The walk from my car to the defense room was the longest walk of my life. Everyone was staring. Everyone. Students I had taught, professors I had worked with, staff members I saw every day. They all stopped what they were doing to look at me. The bald black woman in the red suit walking across campus like she owned the place. Some of them whispered. Some of them pointed. Some of them looked at me with pity. Some of them looked at me with confusion. I did not look at any of them. I kept my eyes forward. I kept my head high. I walked like my grandmother was walking beside me, like all my ancestors were walking beside me. Dr. Evelyn Washington was waiting outside the defense room. She was my dissertation advisor. She had guided me through the last 7 years. She had believed in me when no one else did. When she saw me, she stopped mid-sentence. Her eyes went to my head, to my bald, smooth scalp, to the small cuts that were still visible if you looked closely enough. She said, "Zora, your hair." I said, "I know. It is a long story, a story I will tell you later. But right now I have a defense to conduct. Can we proceed?" She studied my face. She was trying to figure out what had happened. She was trying to figure out if I was okay. She was trying to figure out if I could actually do this. I met her eyes. I let her see the fire burning inside me. I let her see the determination. I let her see that nothing and no one was going to stop me today. She nodded slowly. She said then, "Let us begin." We walked into the defense room together. The committee was already seated. 4 professors, 3 white, 1 black. All of them highly respected in the field of psychology. All of them with the power to determine whether 7 years of my life meant anything. They all stared at my head. Of course they did. How could they not? I walked to the front of the room. I set down my materials. I stood at the podium. I took a deep breath, and I began. I said, "Good morning. My name is Zora Mitchell, and I am here to defend my dissertation. The title is Unbroken Chains, Intergenerational Trauma and Resilience in Black American Women." Then I paused. I looked at each committee member. I looked at Dr. Washington. I looked at the other students who had come to watch. I looked at everyone who was trying so hard not to stare at my bald head. I said, "Before I begin, I want to address what you are all looking at." The room went very still. I said, "Yes, I am bald. As of about 5 hours ago, last night while I slept, my husband and my mother-in-law shaved my head. They believed that without my hair, I would be too ashamed to stand before you today. They believed they could break me." Someone in the room gasped. Someone else whispered something. I kept talking. I said my dissertation is about trauma. It is about how Black women carry pain across generations. It is about how we are told to be strong, to endure, to survive no matter what is done to us. I said, but more importantly, my dissertation is about resilience. It is about how we rise. I paused again. I let the words settle. I said, I am standing before you today, not despite what happened last night, but because of it. I am my research. I am living proof of everything I have written about. The trauma is real, but so is the resilience. I looked at the committee. I said, now, shall we begin? For a moment, no one moved. Then Dr. Washington started to clap. Slowly at first, then faster. Then the other committee members joined in. Then the students in the back of the room. I stood there at that podium with my bald head and my red suit, and I received a standing ovation before I had even started my defense. The next 2 hours were a blur. I presented my research. I answered questions. I defended my methodology. I explained my findings. I discussed the implications. I spoke about the trauma that Black women carry in their bodies, in their minds, in their souls. Trauma passed down from slavery, from Jim Crow, from generations of violence and oppression and survival. And I spoke about how we survive anyway, how we build families and communities and legacies despite everything that tries to destroy us, how we turn our pain into power, how we refuse to be broken, Every word I spoke had new meaning now. Every finding in my research was illustrated by my own body standing in front of them. My bald head was not a mark of shame. It was evidence. Evidence of what Black women endure. Evidence of what we overcome. When I finished, the committee asked me to step outside while they deliberated. I walked into the hallway and sat down on a bench. My legs were shaking. My hands were shaking. But I had done it. I had defended my work. 20 minutes later, the door opened. Dr. Washington stepped out. She was smiling. She said, "Congratulations, Dr. Mitchell." I broke then. All the strength I had been holding on to finally cracked. I fell into her arms and sobbed. I sobbed for my hair. I sobbed for my marriage. I sobbed for every moment of pain I had pushed through to get to this day. But I also sobbed with joy, because I had done it. Despite everything they tried to do to me, I had done it. I was Dr. Zora Mitchell, and no one could ever take that away from me. I sat in my car in this parking lot for a long time after my defense. I was not ready to go home. I was not ready to face Derek and Patricia. I was not ready to walk back into the apartment where they had violated me. I called Destiny. She said 2 words. My office. Now. When I got to her law firm, there were 3 other women waiting for me. Destiny had called in the cavalry. Amara Okonkwo was my lab partner from the PhD program. Nigerian-American. Brilliant. No nonsense. She worked in tech now and could find anything on anyone. Keisha Brown was my cousin, investigative journalist at the local news station. She had been covering stories about domestic violence and abuse for years. And Destiny, my best friend since undergrad, corporate attorney, divorced, survivor, the woman who knew exactly what it felt like to have the person you loved betray you. We gathered in a conference room. Destiny closed the door. She looked at my head, then she looked at my face. She said, "Tell us everything." So I did. I started from the beginning. I told them about how Patricia had shown up that weekend. I told them about the little acts of sabotage, the missing laptop, the stained outfit, the organized notes. I told them about the tea she made me drink, about waking up with no hair, about Derek standing in the doorway smiling. By the time I finished, Amara was shaking with rage. Keisha was taking notes. Destiny had that cold, calculating look on her face that I had seen in the courtroom. Destiny spoke first. She said, "This is assault." She said shaving someone's head without their consent is assault. Battery. And since they planned it together, it is conspiracy. Keisha asked if I wanted to go public with this. She said she could have a story on the news by tonight. I told her I needed to think about that. I was not ready to make that decision yet. I needed to deal with the immediate situation first. Amara said she needed access to Derek's phone. She said, if they planned this, there would be text messages. Evidence. Something we could use. I told her I could get his phone. He always left it lying around the apartment. He was careless like that. Destiny said, "Okay, here is what we are going to do." She pulled out a legal pad and started writing. She said, "First, we document everything. Every bruise on my scalp, every cut from the clippers, every strand of hair they left behind. We take photographs, we get a medical exam, we create a paper trail." She said, "Second, we file a police report. This is assault. It needs to be on record." She said, "Third, we file for divorce. Immediately. Expedited." I had grounds. Adultery was not required in this state, but domestic violence absolutely was. She said, "Fourth, we get him out of my apartment. My name was on the lease. His name was not. He had no legal right to be there. With an emergency protective order, we could have him removed in 24 hours. Amara interrupted. She said, "Actually, Zora, I need to tell you something. I have been doing some digging already." I asked what she meant. She said after Destiny called her that morning, she started looking into Derek's digital footprint. She said she found something. She pulled out her laptop. She showed me a series of text messages between Derek and Patricia. Messages from 3 days ago, the day before Patricia showed up at my apartment. The messages made me sick. Patricia wrote, "If we cut her hair the night before, she will not be able to go through with it. She will be too embarrassed to stand up there bald in front of all those white people. Then she will need us again." Derek wrote back, "I do not know, Mama. This seems extreme." Patricia wrote, "Do you want to lose your wife?" Because that is what is happening. Monday morning she becomes Dr. Mitchell, and you are just the man whose wife is smarter than him. Is that what you want? Derek wrote no. Patricia wrote, then we do what needs to be done. I have the clippers. Be ready. I stared at the screen. I read the messages over and over. They had planned this for days, maybe weeks. They had deliberately targeted the night before my defense. They had strategized about how to break me. Keisha said, that is premeditation. That is conspiracy. That changes everything. Destiny nodded. She said, with these messages, we have a much stronger case. This was not a moment of poor judgment. This was a calculated attack designed to derail your career. I looked at my sister's circle. These women who had dropped everything to be here for me. These women who were ready to go to war on my behalf. I said I want all of it. I want the divorce. I want the protective order. I want them charged. I want them out of my life completely. Destiny smiled. Not a nice smile. A warrior smile. She said then, let us get to work. That afternoon we went to work. Destiny took me to a doctor friend of hers who documented every injury on my scalp. The cuts, the abrasions, the bruising where they had held my head down while they shaved. She took photographs from every angle. She wrote a detailed medical report. Then we went to the police station. I filed a report. The officer who took my statement was a black woman in her 40s. When I told her what happened, her jaw tightened. She had seen this before. She knew exactly what kind of people would do something like this. She said they were going to take this seriously. She said assault was assault regardless of the relationship. She gave me her card and told me to call if anything else happened. Next, Destiny filed the emergency protective order. Given the evidence we had, the medical report, the text messages, the police report, the judge approved it within hours. Derek and Patricia had 24 hours to remove themselves from my apartment. While all of this was happening, Amara was digging deeper into Derek's digital life. What she found made everything worse. Derek had been texting his ex-girlfriend for months. A woman named Tiffany he had dated before me. The messages were not explicitly romantic, but they were inappropriate. He complained about me constantly. He said I thought I was so smart. He said I cared more about my degree than about him. He said he was miserable. Tiffany's responses were encouraging. She told him he deserved better. She told him he should not have to live in his wife's shadow. She told him a real woman would support her man, not compete with him. There was more. Amara found financial records showing that Derek had been spending my money on things I knew nothing about. Expensive dinners at restaurants I had never been to, gifts I had never received, hotel rooms on nights when he told me he was working late. He had been cheating, maybe not physically, but emotionally, financially. He had been planning his exit while I was working 12-hour days on my dissertation. Amara printed everything out. She put it all in a folder. She handed it to Destiny. Destiny said this keeps getting better and better. She said by the time we were done, Derek would not have a leg to stand on. That evening, my mama arrived. Her bus got in at 7 o'clock. I picked her up from the station. When she got off that bus and saw me standing there with my bald head, she did not cry. She did not gasp. She just walked straight to me and wrapped her arms around me. She held me for a long time, right there in the middle of the bus station. She held me like I was 10 years old again, like she could protect me from the world just by holding on tight enough. Finally, she pulled back. She looked at my face. She touched my cheek. She said, "You did it. You got your doctorate." I said, "Yes, Mama. I did." She said, "I knew you would. I never doubted you for 1 second." Then her face hardened. She asked where they were. She asked where the people were who did this to her baby. I told her they were at the apartment, for now, but not for long. She nodded. She picked up her bag. She said, "Good. Take me there." I said, "Mama, I do not think that is a good idea." She said, "Baby, I did not ask what you thought." I said, "Take me there." I knew better than to argue with Mama Gwen when she used that voice. We drove to the apartment. My apartment. The apartment I had been living in for 6 years. The apartment where I had studied for countless exams, written countless papers, dreamed countless dreams. The apartment where my husband and his mother had violated me. Derek's car was in the parking lot. Patricia's car was there too. They were both inside, probably wondering where I had been all day, probably thinking I was somewhere crying and falling apart. They had no idea what was coming. I unlocked the door and walked in with my mama right behind me. Derek and Patricia were sitting in the living room. They both looked up when we entered. They both looked surprised to see me. I think they expected me to come back broken, crying, defeated, ready to apologize for something I had not done. Instead, I walked in with my head held high and my mama at my side and a folder full of evidence in my hand. Patricia spoke first. She said, "Oh, good you came back. We were worried about you. How did your little meeting go? Did you postpone?" I said no, I did not postpone. I defended my dissertation this morning, and I passed. It is Dr. Mitchell now. The look on her face was priceless, complete shock. She had been so sure that taking my hair would take my power. She had been so sure I would crumble without my crown. She underestimated me. Derek stood up. He said, "Wait, you actually went." Like that. I said yes. I went like this. And I passed. With flying colors. The committee gave me a standing ovation. He did not know what to say. He just stood there with his mouth open. My mama stepped forward. She had been quiet until now, just watching, assessing. Now she was ready to speak. She said, "So you are the man who married my daughter, the man who stood before God and promised to love and protect her, the man who waited until she was asleep and shaved her head the night before the biggest day of her life." Derek tried to explain. He said it was not like that. He said I had been stressed. He said they were trying to help me. My mama laughed. Not a happy laugh, a scary laugh, the kind of laugh that made you realize you had messed with the wrong woman's child. She said, "Help. You call that help?" "Baby, I have seen a lot of evil in my 66 years on this earth, but what you did to my daughter is some of the most cowardly, pathetic evil I have ever witnessed." Patricia stood up. She said, "Now, wait just a minute. You cannot come into my son's home and—" My mama turned to her. She said, "Your son's home." She looked around. She looked at me. I said, "This apartment is in my name. It has been in my name since before I met Derek. His name is not on the lease. Never has been." Patricia's face went pale. I pulled out the first set of papers. I said, "This is an emergency protective order. Derek, you and your mother have 24 hours to remove your belongings from my apartment. After that, you will be removed by law enforcement." Derek grabbed the papers. He read them. His hands were shaking. He said, "You cannot do this. This is my home." I said, "No. It is my home. I pay the rent. I pay the utilities. I pay for everything. You do not contribute anything to this household. You never have." Patricia started screaming. She said I was being ungrateful. She said after everything she had done for me. She said I was tearing their family apart. I said, "No. You tore this family apart, you and your son, when you decided to assault me in my sleep. When you decided to try to destroy my career. When you decided that my success was a threat to you." I pulled out the second set of papers. I said, "These are divorce papers. I filed them this afternoon. You can sign them willingly or you can fight it. Either way, this marriage is over." Derek looked at me. For a moment, I saw something in his eyes. Maybe regret, maybe fear, maybe just confusion. He had never seen this version of me before. He had only ever seen the version who accommodated, who compromised, who put his needs before my own. That version was gone. He said, "Zora, baby, let us talk about this. Let us work this out. We can go to counseling." "We can." I said, "There is nothing to talk about. You violated me. You betrayed me. You tried to destroy everything I worked for. We are done." Patricia was crying now. Real tears or fake tears, I could not tell. She said I was making a mistake. She said I was going to regret this. She said I would never find another man who would put up with me. My mama stepped forward again. She got right in Patricia's face. She said, "My daughter does not need a man to put up with her. My daughter is a doctor. My daughter is brilliant and beautiful and strong. My daughter does not need you or your sorry excuse for a son." She pointed to the door. She said, "Now get out of my baby's house. You have 24 hours, and if I ever see either of you again, it will be too soon." Patricia grabbed her purse. She grabbed Derek's arm. They walked to the door. But before they left, Derek turned back. He looked at me with something that might have been hatred, might have been humiliation. He said, "You will regret this. You think you are so much better than everyone else. You think that degree makes you special, but you are nothing. You hear me? Nothing." I smiled. I actually smiled. I said, "I am Dr. Zora Mitchell, and you are just the man I used to be married to." He slammed the door on his way out. My mama turned to me. She opened her arms. I walked into them and finally let myself breathe. It was over. They were gone, and I was still standing. The next 24 hours were chaos. Derek called me 17 times. I did not answer any of them. He left voicemail after voicemail. At first he was angry. Then he was bargaining. Then he was begging. Then he was angry again. He said I was overreacting. He said it was just hair. He said I was destroying our family over nothing. I saved every voicemail. More evidence. Patricia called my phone too. When I did not answer, she called my mama's phone. When Mama did not answer, she called Destiny's office. She left a message with the receptionist calling me names I will not repeat. Destiny saved that message too. More evidence. At 5 o'clock the next day, I stood in my apartment with a sheriff's deputy and watched Derek load his belongings into his car. Patricia was there too, helping him, glaring at me, calling me names under her breath. The deputy told them if they did not leave peacefully, they would be arrested. They left. I walked through my apartment after they were gone. It felt different, lighter, like a weight had been lifted, like something toxic had been removed. My mama helped me change the locks. We threw away anything that reminded me of them, the pillows Patricia had bought, the dishes Derek liked, the photographs from our wedding, all of it. Gone. That night my sister circle came over. Destiny and Amara and Keisha. They brought wine and food and music. They helped me start putting my life back together. Keisha asked me again if I wanted to go public with my story. She said there were people who needed to hear this. She said my story could help other women who were being sabotaged by the people who were supposed to love them. I thought about it. I thought about the shame I had felt that morning when I looked in the mirror. I thought about how Derek and Patricia wanted me to hide, wanted me to be embarrassed, wanted me to disappear. I said yes. I wanted to tell my story. I wanted the world to know what they did. And I wanted other women to know that you can survive this. You can overcome this. You can show up bald and broken and still become everything you were meant to be. Keisha smiled. She said she would start working on the story right away. That weekend, Mama Gwen and I cleaned my apartment from top to bottom. We burned sage. We opened all the windows. We let out all the bad energy. Then we sat on my balcony and watched the sun set. Mama said, "You know I am proud of you, right?" I said, "I know, Mama." She said, "Not just for getting that doctorate. I have always been proud of that. I am proud of how you handled yourself, how you did not let them break you, how you stood up and fought back." I looked at my mama. This woman who had sacrificed everything for me, who had worked her hands bloody so I could have chances she never had. I said, "I learned it from you." She smiled. She took my hand. She said, "You are going to be okay, baby. More than okay. You are going to thrive. And those people who tried to destroy you, they are going to spend the rest of their lives watching you shine and knowing they could not stop you." I believed her. For the first time since I woke up with no hair, I actually believed I was going to be okay. But I was not done yet. The protective order was just the beginning. The divorce was just the beginning. There was still a court date coming. There were still charges to be filed. There was still justice to be served. Derek and Patricia thought they could violate me and walk away. They thought there would be no consequences. They were about to learn how wrong they were. 2 weeks later, I walked into family court for my divorce hearing. My hair was starting to grow back, just a soft fuzz covering my scalp. It was not much, but it was mine. It was new growth, a fresh start. I wore a navy blue suit this time, professional, powerful. I had my mama's pearls around my neck and my grandmother's ring on my finger. I had my ancestors with me. Destiny walked beside me. She was representing me in the divorce. Pro bono. She said this was personal. My sister's circle was in the gallery. Amara, Keisha, my mama. Even Dr. Washington had come. She said she wanted to see justice served. Derek walked in a few minutes later. He looked terrible. His suit was wrinkled. His eyes were red. He had been staying with Patricia since I kicked him out, and apparently she was not taking very good care of him. He had a lawyer with him, a public defender. He could not afford anyone else. All his money had been my money, and now he did not have access to it anymore. Patricia was in the gallery on his side. She was wearing her church clothes like she was trying to convince everyone she was a good Christian woman. No one was fooled. The judge entered. An older black woman with silver hair and sharp eyes. She had seen it all. She was not easily impressed or manipulated. She read through the case file. Then she looked at Derek. She said, "Mr. Mitchell, I have reviewed the evidence in this case. I have seen the medical reports documenting the injuries to your wife's scalp. I have read the text messages between you and your mother planning this assault. I have listened to the voicemails you left threatening her after she filed for divorce." Derek shifted in his seat. His lawyer put a hand on his arm. The judge continued, "She said, before we proceed, do you have anything to say for yourself?" Derek stood up. His lawyer tried to stop him, but he shook him off. He said, "Your Honor, this has all been blown out of proportion. It was just a haircut. She was stressed and we were trying to help her. I love my wife. I never meant to hurt her." The judge raised an eyebrow. She said, "A haircut. Is that what you call shaving a woman's head while she sleeps without her consent?" Derek stuttered. He said she had been so anxious about her defense. "We thought if she did not have to worry about her hair, The judge cut him off. She said, "Let me be very clear. What you did was assault. It does not matter what your intentions were. You violated your wife's bodily autonomy. You caused physical injury. You did it deliberately on the night before the most important professional milestone of her life. That is not love, Mr. Mitchell. That is abuse." Derek sat down. His face was red. Patricia in the gallery was muttering something under her breath. The judge looked at me. She said, "Dr. Mitchell, would you like to make a statement?" I stood up. Destiny gave me an encouraging nod. I said, "Your Honor, I spent 6 years with this man, 4 years as his wife. I supported him through 3 failed businesses. I paid for our apartment, our cars, our food, our everything. I asked for very little in return, just respect, just support, just basic human decency." I paused. I touched my head, the soft fuzz of new growth. I said the night before my PhD defense, the culmination of 7 years of work, the fulfillment of a promise I made to my mother when I was 10 years old. My husband and his mother drugged me and shaved my head while I slept. They left cuts and bruises on my scalp. They threw 12 years of my locks in the garbage. I said they did this because they were afraid of my success, afraid that I would no longer need them, afraid that I would leave. I looked at Derek. I said, "Here is the irony. I was not planning to leave, despite everything, despite the way he treated me, despite his mother's constant criticism. I loved him. I was committed to our marriage. I was going to take that job at Howard and ask him to come with me." I turned back to the judge. I said, "But what they did that night, that was unforgivable. That was a betrayal I cannot recover from. Not because of the hair grows back, but because of what it represented. A complete disregard for my humanity, a complete disregard for my dreams, a complete disregard for everything I had worked for." I said, "I am not asking for revenge, Your Honor. I am asking for justice. I am asking to be free of this man and his family. I am asking to move forward with my life without them in it." The judge nodded. She looked through the paperwork again, then she delivered her ruling. The judge cleared her throat. The courtroom went completely silent. She said, "In the matter of Mitchell versus Mitchell, I have reviewed all evidence and testimony. My ruling is as follows." She looked at Derek. She said, "Mr. Mitchell, in all my years on this bench, I have seen many cases of domestic abuse, physical abuse, emotional abuse, financial abuse. What you did to your wife falls into a category I do not see often. Targeted sabotage designed specifically to destroy her professional achievement. She said you waited until the night before the most important day of her career. You drugged her. You violated her body without her consent. You did this in coordination with your mother, with full knowledge of what you were doing and why. She said this was not a moment of poor judgment. This was a calculated attack. Patricia stood up in the gallery. She shouted, "That is not fair. We were trying to help her. She was losing her mind over that stupid degree." The judge pointed her gavel at Patricia. She said, "One more outburst, and you will be removed from this courtroom and held in contempt." Patricia sat down. Her face was bright red. The judge continued. She said, "My rulings are as follows. Number 1. The divorce is granted immediately on grounds of domestic abuse and assault." Destiny squeezed my hand. Number 2. Regarding asset division. Dr. Mitchell has provided documentation showing that she was the sole financial contributor to this marriage. The apartment was in her name before the marriage. All bills and expenses were paid by her. Mr. Mitchell made no significant financial contribution. She said, therefore, there is nothing to divide. All assets remain with Dr. Mitchell. Derek's lawyer tried to object. The judge overruled him before he could finish his sentence. Number 3. The assault charges filed by Dr. Mitchell against Mr. Mitchell and Patricia Mitchell are upheld. This court finds sufficient evidence of premeditated assault and conspiracy. She said, "Mr. Mitchell, you are sentenced to 6 months probation. You are required to complete a mandatory anger management program. You are ordered to pay a fine of $5,000. Derek slumped in his chair. She said, "Mrs. Patricia Mitchell." Same sentence. 6 months probation. Mandatory counseling. $5,000 fine. And I am adding a notation to your record that you were complicit in the assault of your daughter-in-law. Patricia started crying, loud dramatic sobs. The judge ignored her. Number 4. The restraining order is made permanent. Both Mr. Mitchell and Mrs. Patricia Mitchell are to maintain a distance of 500 feet from Dr. Mitchell at all times. Any violation will result in immediate arrest. She looked at me. She said, "Dr. Mitchell, I want to add something personal if I may." I nodded. She said, "I have seen a lot of people come through this courtroom, broken people, defeated people, people who let their circumstances destroy them. She said what you did, showing up to your doctoral defense the morning after this assault, completing your degree despite everything they tried to do to you. That took a kind of strength that I rarely see. She said you are an inspiration, and I hope you continue to use that strength to build a beautiful life for yourself." She banged her gavel. Court dismissed. For a moment, I did not move. I could not believe it was over. After everything, after the assault, after the fear, after the anger and the pain and the betrayal, it was over. Then Destiny hugged me, and my mama ran up from the gallery and hugged me, and Amara and Keisha surrounded me. And even Dr. Washington came up and shook my hand. We walked out of that courtroom together, a wall of black women supporting each other. Derek was still sitting at the defendant's table, his head in his hands. His lawyer was packing up. His mother was still crying in the gallery. I did not look back at them. They did not deserve my attention anymore. Outside the courthouse, the sun was shining. It was a beautiful day, the first beautiful day in a long time. "Keisha said so, Dr. Mitchell. Can I officially interview you now? My story is almost done. I just need your final statement." I smiled. I said, "Yes, I am ready." She pulled out her phone to record. She said, "Dr. Zora Mitchell, what do you want the world to know?" I thought for a moment. I thought about everything I had been through, the 7 years of school, the assault, the betrayal, the fight. I said I want the world to know that you cannot stop a woman who has decided to become who she was meant to be. I said they took my hair. I took my life back. They tried to shame me. I stood taller. They wanted me broken. I became unbreakable. I said whatever someone is trying to take from you, your confidence, your career, your crown, do not let them. I said, show up anyway, fight anyway, win anyway. I touched my head, my soft new growth. I said, because your power is not in your hair. It is not in your relationship. It is not in what anyone else thinks of you. I said your power is in your refusal to quit, in your determination to keep going, in your decision that nobody gets to define you but you. Keisha stopped the recording. She had tears in her eyes. She said that was perfect. Keisha's story aired 3 days later. She called it, "The Night Before Her PhD Defense They Shaved Her Head." She showed up anyway. It went viral. Within 24 hours, it had been shared over 50,000 times. News outlets across the country picked it up. I did interviews with national morning shows. My story was everywhere. And with every share and every interview, the truth about Derek and Patricia spread. Their church found out what they did. The congregation that Patricia had been a part of for 30 years. The church where she had held leadership positions. Where she had sat in the front row every Sunday pretending to be a godly woman. The pastor called her into his office. Multiple members had seen the story and complained. They did not want someone like that representing their church. Patricia was removed from all her ministry positions. She was asked to step back from leadership indefinitely. The women who used to call her friends stopped calling. The community she had built over decades crumbled around her. Derek fared even worse. His real estate license was suspended pending investigation of his assault charges. No one wanted to buy a house from a man who had attacked his wife. His business, which was already struggling, dried up completely. The woman he had been texting, Tiffany. She blocked him when the story went public. She did not want to be associated with someone like that. He moved in with Patricia, the two of them in her small apartment, bitter and broke and alone with each other. Meanwhile, I was soaring. Howard University officially offered me the position once the divorce was finalized. I moved to Washington, D.C., 2 months after the trial. I got an office with my name on the door, Dr. Zora Mitchell, Department of Psychology. My first day on campus, I walked through the yard surrounded by brilliant black students. I saw myself in them, dreamers, fighters, people who were told they did not belong and showed up anyway. I started teaching. Introduction to Clinical Psychology. My classroom was full of young black women who looked at me with recognition, who saw my short natural hair and my confidence and knew that I had been through something. I told them my story. On the first day of class, I told them about my dissertation and my defense and what my husband did to me. Then I told them that they were going to face obstacles too, people who did not want them to succeed, people who were threatened by their brilliance, people who would try to dim their light. I told them to shine anyway. I told them to keep going anyway. I told them that nobody gets to decide their worth but them. The response was overwhelming. Students came to my office hours not just to discuss coursework, but to share their own stories, their own struggles, their own battles against people who tried to stop them. I became more than a professor. I became a mentor, a safe space, a living example of what was possible. My book came out 8 months after I started at Howard. I called it Hair and Power, A Black Woman's Journey Through Trauma and Triumph. It was part memoir, part psychology. It explored the significance of hair in black culture and what it means when someone takes that from you. It hit the bestseller list in its first week. I did a book tour, sold out events in cities across the country. Thousands of women came to hear me speak, to share their own stories, to cry together and laugh together and heal together. My mama came to every event she could. She sat in the front row with tears streaming down her face, watching her daughters stand on stages talking about resilience and survival. After one event, she pulled me aside. She said, "Baby, do you remember when you were 10 years old and you found me crying at the kitchen table?" I said, "I remember." She said, "You told me that one day I would not have to clean nobody else's house. You told me you were going to take care of me." I smiled. I said, "I remember." She held up a key. She said, "This came in the mail today." It was a key to a small house in a nice neighborhood outside D.C., a house I had bought with my book advance and my professor salary, a house for my mama. She would never clean another person's house again. We both cried. Right there in the lobby of the venue, 2 black women holding each other, one who had sacrificed everything, one who had refused to give up. Both of them finally free. 1 year later, I stood at a podium in front of 500 people. It was a national conference on black women's mental health. I was the keynote speaker. The room was filled with psychologists and social workers and counselors and educators, black women who dedicated their lives to helping other black women heal. My hair was fully grown now, a beautiful natural afro, not as long as my locks had been, but growing every day. New growth, fresh start, proof that what they tried to take from me could not be taken forever. I looked out at the audience. I saw my sister circle in the front row, Destiny, who had handled my divorce, Amara, who had found the evidence, Keisha, who had told my story, my mama sitting between them with a smile so wide it lit up the room. I saw Dr. Washington there too, the woman who had guided me through my doctorate, who had believed in me when I was just a scared first-generation student trying to figure out if she belonged. I saw hundreds of other faces, women I had never met but who knew my story, who had read my book, who had been inspired to keep fighting their own battles. I began to speak. I said a year ago, I woke up with no hair. I woke up violated by the people who were supposed to love me. I woke up 4 hours before the biggest moment of my life with every reason to give up. I said I did not give up. I said I walked into that defense room bald and broken and terrified. And I became Dr. Zora Mitchell anyway. I paused. I let the words settle. I said you are going to face sabotage, all of you, from partners, from family members, from colleagues, from strangers who do not even know you but feel threatened by your brilliance. I said they will try to take your confidence. They will try to take your opportunities. They will try to take your crown. I said, let them try. I said because here is what they do not understand. Your power is not in anything they can take from you. Your power is in your mind. Your power is in your heart. Your power is in your refusal to quit. I said they took my hair. I took my life back. They tried to shame me. I stood taller. They wanted me broken. I became unbreakable. I said that is our power. That is our magic. That is what they fear. I said so whatever they are trying to take from you right now, whatever obstacle they have put in your path, whatever sabotage they have planned for your success, I said show up anyway, fight anyway, win anyway. I said, because you were not put on this earth to be small. You were not put on this earth to dim your light for anyone. You were put on this earth to shine. I said so, shine, brightly, boldly, unapologetically. I said, become who you were meant to be. I said, and let them watch. The room erupted in applause, 500 women on their feet, 500 voices cheering, 500 hearts connected by shared struggle and shared triumph. I looked at my mama. She was crying, happy tears, proud tears. The tears of a woman who had cleaned other people's houses her whole life so that her daughter could stand on stages. I looked at my sister circle, my chosen family, the women who had held me up when I could not stand, who had fought for me when I was too tired to fight for myself. I looked at my reflection in the glass behind the stage, a black woman with natural hair and clear eyes and an unbreakable spirit, and I smiled, because they tried to destroy me, and instead they created something they never expected, a woman who could not be stopped, a woman who would spend the rest of her life helping other women find their power too. They thought they took my crown when they took my hair. They were wrong. My crown was never on my head. It was always in my spirit, and that is something no one can ever take away. If you are watching this, and you are going through your own battle, if someone is trying to sabotage you, if you are thinking about giving up, I want you to hear me, really hear me. You can survive this. You can overcome this. You can show up bald and broken and still become everything you were meant to be. Do not let them win. Do not let them dim your light. Do not let them convince you that you are not worthy of your dreams. You are worthy. You are powerful. You are enough. Now go prove it. This is Dr. Zora Mitchell, and my story is proof that nobody can stop you but you. Dr. Zora Mitchell published her book. It became a bestseller. Mama Gwen retired from cleaning. She now lives in a house her daughter bought for her. Destiny was promoted to partner at her law firm. Amara founded a tech nonprofit supporting Black women in STEM. Keisha won a journalism award for her story about Dr. Mitchell. Dr. Washington retired from teaching. Her last doctoral student was Zora. Derek tried to contact Zora once after the divorce. She did not respond. He still lives with his mother. Patricia was removed from all church leadership positions. She has not spoken publicly since the story went viral. The university where Zora defended her dissertation now uses her story as an example of resilience in their orientation program. Dr. Mitchell has helped 47 first-generation students complete their doctoral degrees. Her hair is thriving, just like her. If this story moved you, hit that like button. Subscribe so you never miss stories like this. And comment below. Tell me your story. Tell me what you overcame. Tell me who tried to stop you and how you won anyway, because your story matters too. Until next time, stay strong, stay focused, stay unbreakable.